Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There you go, right down there. You want to be among the first to hear my weekly takes, NFL, college football, more, right there. Eric Mangini is one of the few Belichick guys that everybody loved being around. That a lot of his guys, Patricia, Joe Judge, Bill O'Brien, they're tough guys. Charlie Weiss, they're hard on people.
Flores, younger guy, but he's angry. He's edgy.
Yeah, and I think McVay's got Raheem Morris, Kevin O'Connell. There's a spirit like, how lucky are we?
Look at D'Amico. Wouldn't you just want to hang out with D'Amico? There's an aura around him. He just like glows. And he's been like that. I was around him as a player. He was like a team captain as a rookie. Like some guys just haven't. And I think he's a great example.
Let's talk about that. Let's pivot to the Houston win over Denver. So D'Amico Ryans. My takeaway, it's funny. There's the old stat that you hear this all the time by analytic mavens. They say winning is not a quarterback stat, which is nonsense. Because if you put Davis Mills starting for Houston instead of CJ Stroud, the entire roster stays the same. They're a 2-win team. Stroud made 2 throws today under duress that he's just innately accurate. There was he's running across his body and he flips something up. And I'm like, people that'll never show up in the box score. People have no idea how hard it is to be in a full sprint left. A guy's on you, throw it to a receiver moving right to left. But D'Amico's demeanor on the sideline, there's no barking. He is genuinely happy when Texan players, he's not mad when they fail. My wife always says, you're right or you're learning. Like, get out of wrong. You're figuring it out. So D'Amico, when I watch Houston today, because I think Denver's a pretty decent team now, that win is more significant than people think. Denver was basically bailing water all day to stay close.
I actually think him and Robert Saleh are very similar guys. One just has a quarterback and the other does not. That helps a lot. Denver, the team that has played lately is not the team that gave up 70 points. That defense was peppering them. Listen, it got weird there for a couple of years. It was really ugly with the Deshaun situation. But I wrote down today, they have a star rocket ship coach. They have a quarterback that just, I don't know, statistically, when it's all said and done, where he's going to rank relative to all the rookies ever in the history of the league. It's going to be up there. But the eye test, he is clearly one of the most special rookie quarterbacks we've seen.
No question.
Will Anderson, a little like Aiden Hutchinson, people question like how high was the ceiling? Could he be Myles Garrett and Nick Bosa? I don't know. But Will Anderson is the type human one you build around, and clearly he's pretty damn good. You don't go to be a team captain in Alabama for a couple of years without being a badass. So they have a coach, they have a quarterback, they have a pass rusher. Remember a couple of years ago when they took the kid from LSU, Stingley, over Sauce Gardner? Everyone's like, how are they doing this? Sauce can't miss. Stingley sure looks better to me than Sauce Gardner. Sauce won't tackle me or you. Stingley looks he's more of a fluid elite athlete, like a Revis type. He looks fantastic. So they have a star corner. They have a really good left tackle. The rookie wide receiver looked like he had a bad injury, got carted off, but that kid's a stud. This team today, they've had some impressive wins. But the way it was going, Jimmy Ward's a good example. D'Amico around Jimmy, he no longer was a starter in San Francisco, but he was a team captain level, just winning player, high level guy. When the Niners drafted Trey Lance, they put his locker next to Jimmy Ward because they wanted him to follow him, the way he acted, the way he operated. Well, what did D'Amico do? That's who he brought and who made the game winning play, but who obviously I would imagine Stingley's growth. He's around that guy every day. So you get some young building blocks who are clearly high character, good guys. You have a coach that everyone's loved for 15 years as a player, let alone as a coach. That guy, his rise as a coach, him and Vrabel are just like rocket ships. Like they went from position coaches to head coaches before you could even blink. And then within a couple of years, you're like, God, this guy probably should have been a head coach faster. Maybe this guy didn't need to wait. So if I'm a Texan fan, whether you win a playoff game, whether you ultimately get in or not this year, the future feels as bright as humanly possible, right? Because no state income tax. Here's the problem with the Cowboys, right? Their salary cap is always taken because Jerry's taking. If they ever had salary cap space, everyone would want to go there. The Texans are going to because they got all these guys on rookie contracts. Houston's the city that players are going to like. They are going to have the opportunity. They still have a draft pick coming from the Browns, who now have major issues because of their quarterback. right? So it's this Texans team, to me, is a team, maybe not this year. Like, I don't know if they're going to win a playoff game. Not saying that's not possible depending on the matchup, but if you like play the Ravens in the first round,
Right.
in the next couple of years, if CJ just stays around this level, I mean, are we talking about like a Super Bowl contender?
Well, and it was funny because during the off season, and when you're doing June, July sports talk, radio talk, June, July, August, and after the NFL, you got a little draft stuff, and I remember 2 or 3 times I kept coming back to it, and it may have felt like filler, and McIntyre was giving me crap, and I kept saying, is anybody watching what Houston's doing? They're getting all these B players. It's very Parcells. Bill's thing, he would go to Miami. Remember when he was the GM? They went from 1 win to 11 wins in 1 year. And he filled out the bottom third of the roster, like your second back, your blocking tight end, your center. And if you go back and you Google the Texans offseason moves, they were like Dalton Schultz got no publicity. And you're like, comes from a winning culture, right? Like he's going to feel a little abandoned by the Cowboys. So he's going to be a little pissy with a chip on his shoulder with Houston. Like, you're getting rid of me? Look at my production. And so he comes to Houston with something to prove. And they did this very slowly. And then you hit on Will Anderson and Stroud and your coach. And by the way, John, like any well-run business, it gets better over time. They're a much better team today than 8 weeks ago.
Well,
I watched that game today, and my takeaway was CJ's better than Russ, no question. And DeMeco has more confidence in CJ Stroud than Peyton has in Russell Wilson. That was my takeaway watching.
Russell had some moments, I thought, today where it looked a little throwback 2022. He had been playing pretty well, but today was tough. And DeMeco is going to know him well because when he was a position coach and he was with Seattle, like he knows Russell pretty well. And Russell's not obviously athletically, who actually has gotten closer to that guy than he was last year because he's lost some weight. I think when it comes to the Houston Texans, though, forever in that division, it was like, well, Peyton Manning, for 12 years, they were just going to win it every year. Trevor Lawrence is a really good player, but I don't know, like, if you factor in the contract and you just poll GMs and head coaches, right? Because Trevor, within the year or two, has to get paid. I think most people would take CJ Stroud. And there's an element of Peyton that had like that just will to refuse to be denied. And there was an intensity that he's just an all-time football guy. You watch Trevor is like, is he an all-time football guy? He doesn't really feel Brady. Hell, he doesn't feel like Jalen Hurts and Purdy, right? Just he's really talented. He honestly feels a little more NBA-ish. God gave him a lot of gifts. He's tall. He's got a good arm. He's accurate. He can move. But it's like, is football his everything? Like, I watch CJ. I just watched the Texans play. They play like all the guys on the team, starting with their head coach. It is. So if you were just betting on a franchise, the divisions, Tennessee's got a lot of issues, right? Yeah. I mean, a ton. The Colts, I don't even know how they're doing this. I mean, it's pretty crazy because I bet if you texted Chris Ballard right now, he's like, no one saw this coming. And I would say if I'm the Texans, we'll see how Anthony Richardson, like, he's going to have to prove that he can stay on the field. You'd feel pretty good about your chances to, like, run the division for some years coming up. Because let's face it, one of the Jags' big moves a couple years ago, they had the number 1 pick. Well, Balky tried to hit a home run with the D lineman. If he had taken Aiden Hutchinson, I think we might look at the Jags a little different, right? They'd just be a little more complete. They're just not as good on defense, a little dependent on Trevor, and Trevor can get rattled fast. I would say CJ's best characteristic, pretty hard to rattle the guy. I mean, it really is. I mean, unfazed. He's got that special quality of just Jalen Hurts has it today. Concussion comes back. He's like, this guy just flatliner. Purdy kind of has it. It's a characteristic you kind of have to have, and he has it in spades.